Very happy to have with us today Nicole Upchurch, who is the CEO of CENNZNet. This is a whole new world, really, for New Zealand, blockchain and all of this. So we've got a blockchain specialist with us today. Nicole, you're going to help us just demystify a bit of this. Why we need to know about NFTs, right? And I guess why it's really something. Would you say that every Kiwi and more should know about, be interested in, perhaps have a pie they should have a finger in?
It's an area that more and more people are becoming interested in, and I find little pockets, little niches of people that honestly they know more than I do. So there's definitely some momentum going behind it. But I think what's really going to be helpful for your audience today is talk about use cases that you'll be able to see in the real world within the next 6 months that you won't even know that blockchain. So it's not so much of a leap where you go, oh, all of a sudden I have to know about this new technology and what happens in the background. When you see an application come to you, the blockchain part shouldn't matter. All it does is provide that extra piece of trust and transparency.
So is it a little bit like when you go to a house? Yes, you're interested in is it made of timber framing or steel framing, but that's the foundations of it. What you're really interested in is, can I live in it? And so yeah. I guess the blockchain or the network that CENNZNet is like that behind the scenes infrastructure making things work, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Could we call it analogous to some way that, you make a withdrawal from a bank, you deposit money, and it's recorded on their ledger, that the blockchain instead is in a more advanced form that can't be fiddled with, or you can't cook the books. Would that also be a fair comparison?
Well, the way that I tend to explain it is that, pardon me if it's a little bit too 101, but if you go into a flatting situation in New Zealand and say there's 4 flatmates in the flat back in the day when I was flatting, one person would usually create some sort of bills account and they would say to you, every month I'm going to require you to put X amount for broadband and X amount for power and utilities and whatever and a bit for rent. And there has to be quite a bit of trust between you and that person that they're giving you the amounts that's required because they get all the bills, they see access to the bank account. In a blockchain world, every flatmate in that house would have access to that information. And the reason for that and the reason it provides trust is that it's very hard to game the system when everyone else in there also has the information right in front of them. You would have to convince 50% or more of those people to say, hey, I want to get an extra $20 here, so I'm going to say this. And for them to go, yeah, okay, I'll cross it out and say it on mine as well. So I think that's one of the ways that blockchains have really become so big, especially in the DeFi space at the moment, is because you can create transactions with people that you don't know. And you can trust because they're on the blockchain that, that thing is going to happen. You're going to have the change of goods, or you're going to have, you buy something and it comes to you because it's immutable and transparent on the blockchain. Everyone can see it.
Right, so this is a couple of words of the week: DeFi, decentralized finance. Google that one, and immutable. That makes one sound very intelligent. So it's so immutable, but unchangeable, really, isn't it? So thank you. We're growing our vocab by the minute. So the blockchain really, what people might be wondering is it safe, and why is it safe? Is it because of that transparency and unchangeability that you mentioned?
Yeah, so over the last couple of years, there's been a huge shift for DeFi. And for me, I feel like if there's financial institutions, banks, investment houses and that type of thing, looking at blockchain, implementing blockchain into their existing network, that in itself is a bit of a validation. But the reason that it works is because when a business like that runs its own node, so if you think about the flatmate scenario, we had 4 flatmates in there, that would be 4 nodes. When a person runs a node, they basically get every transaction on the blockchain Those aren't like with people's name and address, phone number, and all the rest of it. It's only wallets in there. But, there's a way that people can attribute that wallet if they know the wallet. So there is transparency there, but not so much that every person, you're all opening this kimono up with all of your information. And all of the blockchains are cryptographically secure.
Right.
And the other part of the security is around the nodes, right, running the information. I've given you an example with 4 people. You might have 1,000 nodes running on your network, which means that it's very hard for information to be gained within that environment because you'd need at least 51% of those nodes to want to gain it.
Yeah. So what is CENNZNet, I guess, doing in the background? It's running a whole lot of computers, planning lots of cool stuff, and kind of behind the scenes, and we don't see what it's doing is there. Would that be fair comment?
Yeah, we're an infrastructure provider. So we provide layer 1 open source protocols. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit geeky here, but basically we're like a chorus, if you like.
Yeah.
We create the infrastructure, we provide it to people, and people take our open source code and they build all of their fancy, exciting apps around it, and then they deliver it to market. So we're kind of a little bit behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Our job is to make sure that our proposition from the start has always been around making sure that we're helping these smaller businesses get to market. So the way that we do that is, yes, we provide the network, but all of our code is open source, and we provide all the protocols or tools that every business will need. So there'll be a wallet, a digital wallet that's available to them, kind of white label, if you like. There will be a messaging platform, there will be a decentralized exchange, there will be an identity protocol. And if you try and bring that into the real world, if you're creating another Uber, for example, you know that firstly you're going to need to know that that person is legit because, for the safety of your staff. You're going to want to be able to message that person to say, hey, we're on our way, so there's a messaging part to it. You're going to need to transact with that person, and you're going to need to transact in the blockchain environment with crypto. So a decentralized exchange in the background kind of helps you with that. So we give those protocols to people in an open source way. Anyone can use them, and then they create the little bespoke things that they need around them to create their app.
So it sounds like, Nicole, really this is just very early days, because the potential is huge, isn't it? That then you might transact with your business, you've got security. I don't have a credit card, that doesn't matter, I've got a digital wallet, we can pay that way. And because of that transparency, but security and traceability, it lowers the risk, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it sounds like it's there's a long way this could go. Now, earlier you were talking just before we kind of rolled the cameras here about NFTs.
Yes.
And I've seen some some bizarre stuff on NFTs, and companies making stuff for the metaverse, and the idea that a bit like some of the digital worlds that have already been created, or a bit like somebody said to me, that movie Ready Player One, where people were kind of living in the metaverse. Yeah. Tell us about NFTs. Again, is this something we the average Kiwi should care about? Should property investors who maybe have got a house but want to expand things, should they care about that? Where does that come in? Let's assume that we're NFT, have zero NFT knowledge. Yeah.
No, so NFTs are like my favorite thing at the moment. They're very they're trending in our industry for quite a number of reasons, and I think the main one is that they're just so much more pliable than your standard crypto. In fact, one of the girls on my team said that she has made more in NFTs over the last 6 months than she has made in crypto in the last 4 years, and that includes buying, trading, and staking. So, and for me, I've never been a numbers person. I love the technology. I'm marketing by my career. The DeFi space is for the deep tech, accountants that understand layers that are required to make something sustainable in their business. So that's good. NFTs are just a fun way for people to engage in crypto that will move into other things in the future. So when it started, it was very much about, people call them JPEGs. Right-click JPEG, I've got this NFT, I've saved it. The thing with an NFT is that it shows ownership, because we know that the blockchain is transparent and immutable. So once you've bought that NFT, it is forever in your wallet saying that you owned it until you sell it, and then people can see that you've sold it on. If you right-click and save a JPEG, you can't sell it again for twice as much as you paid for it. You just have a nice copy of an image. So it's really about ownership. But I think for me, use cases that are coming to light at the moment, for example, we've got a project in our ecosystem that's doing ticketing. And that's a great one, because we all know every time concert season rolls around or sporting season, there'll be an article in the paper of someone that's gone to a game and bought his tickets secondhand off someone, and they've sent him the electronic QR code, and they get to the gate and they say, sorry, sir, that ticket's already been used. And they've been scammed.
Yeah.
In a blockchain environment, before you bought that ticket, you would check that the person with the wallet actually owns the ticket, and then you would be able to see through a smart contract. It's not going to smart contracts today, but it's basically the law. Think about it that when a smart contract is implemented, there's nothing in this world that will stop it, because it's the code and code is law. So the smart contract will say, as soon as I receive that money, that ticket comes out. And so there's no chance of him getting the money or her getting the money, and then saying, well, I'm not going to send it now, because the smart contract won't let that happen. So when you think about ticketing in terms of NFTs, and this is a great way that it's going to show up in the real world, and you're not going to know the difference. You're just going to be like, but I got my ticket for the concert and it now comes on my phone, as opposed to in an email that I print out or whatever, and I take into the venue. And you might, in your digital wallet that you will have to create, show and scan that as part of your entry into the event, but it will eliminate the scam potential for other ways of other forms of ticketing.
Okay, so that's just one very practical example. I've read that NFTs are highly speculative, and of course it's a pointer, isn't it? It's an address, as it were. The original work of art, or whatever form it may be, has to be preserved. Otherwise, you've got the pointer, but you haven't got the original one. So everything has its level of risk. Let's hope that hard drive is backed up somewhere.
So we have a NFT marketplace within our organisation. It's still very much in the starting point, so we've got a lot of polishing and things to do in it. But when you go through, and I'll tell you what, minting an NFT is literally as easy as loading something onto TradeMe to be sold. It's not hard at all. You've got to have the crypto for the transaction in your wallet, so that's something that people that are new to this space will need to learn how to do, how to create a wallet, how to find some crypto. And then you basically load it up like you'd load a TradeMe listing. It's really not hard. Now, in our Litho marketplace, it gets saved to IPFS, which is a decentralized storage system. We might change that in the future. That's just the best option that's available to us at the moment. But in lots of other, every marketplace, every project is probably going to find a different way to hold those. It's really important, as with anything, including crypto, that you do your own research on it. A lot of these projects are really, and same as ours, are really focused on communicating and engaging with their community. So if you went on to Discord, if you went on to Twitter, they'll have a lot of information, and you can tell how good a project is about how much they share and how many people are chatting about them organically. There's a lot of scams out there, I'm not going to lie. It's an issue, I guess, that you find wherever you go, whatever industry you're in. So if there is a moment of not actually acting on something emotionally, you need to actually go on and check And I tell you what, if you ever came into one of the Discord or Twitter channels for us and said, hey, I've received this thing, it seems a bit too good to be true and I'm not sure about it, we would help people walk through that. So always reach out if you're unsure.
Nice. So there's some support there, and it's as easy as that to get it.
Yes.
Wow.
And it's not just the people like, my marketing team. Yeah, they go in the community every day answering questions, but you find that the community start answering those questions too. The really loyal people that you see in there all day, every day, become pseudo-ambassadors for your project. And you'll go to answer a question and all of a sudden 3 other people that don't even work for you have already answered it with exactly what you were going to say.
Mm-hmm.
So I find that, and it's really hard again for the scammers to come in there and say, oh, you should do this, because they will be hunted down really quickly by the other people in the community.
Right. Now, in terms of projects, we do need to talk about the Lithoverse, particularly that ease of creating your own. But in terms of projects, is what you're referring to is like, for example, up until now, perhaps one might have gone to OpenSea and it's the, now I'm having a moment, the something ape party, and there's, FLUF World and so, things like that. Projects in this sense. Bored Ape, that's the one. Yes, and there's controversy about Bored Ape and reverse Bored Ape that I was reading about lately. There's two different views on that. But in terms of projects, is that what we're referring to?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've given you a real use case of something that maybe you're actually finding in your day-to-day life, but the big hype at the moment is very much about basically, purchasing an NFT in somewhere like OpenSea or Litho. And depending on the store of value for that NFT, it might increase in price. Sometimes it's, if you want to try and get in early, you take some risks with that. You never risk more than you can afford. Or you get it at midway sometimes, and maybe you pay a little bit more than someone would have when they minted it. But you can see that there's actually some substance behind the community and what they're doing. You're like, great, I'm going to jump on now because it's still relatively early. The NFT space, now, FYI, if you go and it's just a picture like Bored Ape Yacht Club or Lazy Lions or lots of different things, we call them Flatheads because
there's some inside jargon, right?
Yeah. That's just a flat 2D picture of something that someone's decided that they want enough to spend $100,000 on or whatever. The stuff that we're working on in our projects is more in the 3D space, and that is your first journey into metaverse. And metaverse, I feel like, obviously, Zuckerberg's talked about it recently, and just again from the industry, we're not necessarily on board with that because we feel like this really big centralized behemoth is trying to own the metaverse where it shouldn't be owned. Metaverse is something, it's like the internet. No one owns the internet. It just is. Same with the metaverse. But very much like your example with Ready Player One, there will be a transition over the next 5 years into people using their avatars, NFTs that they've bought, and walking into this virtual space and meeting with people and chat. Gaming, play to earn gaming is going to be massive the next 5 to 10 years. So I think for me, especially when we look at our Altered State Machine and FLUF World, two of the projects that are building on CENNZNet.
We just, by the way, we'll put some links in the description. We haven't got yet to, I think, you got to get 10,000 views on YouTube. We're almost there. Like we've got 5, so we're just about. No, we'll put some links in below so that if you're thinking what world, Litho, what, you can just click on that and see that while it's being watched. So yeah, do go on, Nicole.
Yeah, so these projects are creating 3D animated avatars that you can basically buy, and then you will be able to take that avatar into the metaverse. And with Altered State Machine, I know this is getting really geeky, but it's just so exciting, and I'm so proud that our teams are doing it. They're actually creating AI NFT brains that you can put into your avatar, which means that if you're doing gaming, you can take your avatar into a gym and train it on various things. You could train it how to trade crypto for you. You can train it in a gym to play football, you can train it in lots of different things, and then you can just let it run.
Wow. Look, what we might do, if it's all right, is perhaps just put a couple of screenshots up here, and Nicole, if you just tell us what we're looking at here. So, so this is an example of what we're talking about here. We're looking at FLUF World. So what is this? It's a bunch of weird-looking rabbits. Can you, what are we looking at?
Yeah. So scroll down a little bit. So each of these rabbits, and there's 10,000 in total. Yeah, around 10,000 in total. All have different attributes, and depending on how rare their attribute is, it makes them more valuable. Also, you can see there's a little play button on each of the rabbits. So each rabbit comes with its own little dance move, if you like, and its own music.
Okay, and I notice that people are bidding for them here. So that's, I guess, active. They're actively for sale.
Yes, so if you scroll up a little bit just to help with the education to the top. So what you're looking at here, so the floor price at the moment, which is basically the lowest price that they are being sold for, is 4 ETH, which is $3,000 US each. So you're looking at $12,000 US for one rabbit.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a few bob, because Ethereum have really picked up in price. Yeah, all right. Okay, so in other words, this is this fairly common that you might see something, and if you want to get into that, you're not going to get something for 50 cents. It is an investment we're talking about.
Yeah, the reason that those rabbits, for example, and this is where you do have to do a little bit of research and make sure that you go on and understand what the project's all about. The reason that they're going so high right now is that if you own a male FLUF and a female FLUF, you can breed them and create another FLUF and you can sell that on.
Right, yep, that happened in New Zealand many years ago, and look at what's happened now. This is a much safer environment to be breeding virtual rabbits.
I don't know how they're going to eradicate these bunnies.
Yeah.
But, part of the reason that the price is going up for them is that you can only do that with Genesis rabbits, and that's why I bought a female today. So I've got a male and a female now.
Right, you're the proud owner of a little rabbit couple. Congratulations.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Now that's good. I mean, I'm teasing a bit because it just seems so out there, and yet what you're saying makes sense, of course. Let's just have another look at another site that you'd referred to. So this is another one that you had mentioned earlier. Tell us about this one here, this ASM Brains.
Yeah, so each of those little circles at the top there that remind me of one of those, you used to do them with your school, and you
like
go
a hacky sack.
thread no, it was like you thread the wool through the thing until it got so big, and then you cut it and turned it into a pom-pom.
Oh, yes.
So these are basically brains. Now, if you look at each of these brains, they're all quite unique, colours and different places where they've got long bits and short bits. That shows you that each of them just has different skills. So if we look at, say, number one, it's very big and long down the bottom. That might be, for example, stamina, or it could be they might have a lot of knowledge in something. So each one of them is quite special, and you can put them into NFTs once you move into the metaverse.
Yeah, okay. So this is, thanks for the explanation. So it is something, like anything that you're going to get into, it pays to be educated, right?
Yes.
Now, earlier you'd mentioned, and I guess we'd say to investors, talk to a financial advisor that gets crypto, that gets the blockchain, that gets NFTs, because that's still quite a new space of the market. In fact, I'm chatting to Janine from Easy Crypto. Shout out to Easy Crypto, a very easy way to buy crypto. Is that not all accountants, in fact, it's a very small group that get crypto, which surprised me. So I guess from an investor point of view, do your homework like anything else. But you mentioned earlier the Lithoverse. and that you could mint your own or create your own NFTs. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Sure, anyone can create an NFT. Don't expect to make $69 million off it like Beeple did.
Right.
In fact, on our site, because it's still quite new and young, we've got a lot of cool upcoming New Zealand artists going on there. And you can just post anything up there and hope that someone will buy it. The ones that are really working, and if we go back to our last two examples, FLUF and ASM, they've got many layers to it. So anyone can create a piece of art and put it up there, and you probably will sell it for X amount of money. What you want to build around you is a community that really buys into this journey that they're on. There's another really good New Zealand NFT company, Titan Tickies. They started with just the image, and now I feel like they're trying to get a little bit deeper into what they can do in the metaverse so that they can build a bigger business proposition for themselves. And there's lots of places that you can go that are really easy to learn from. In fact, the Facebook groups, the Crypto New Zealand Community Facebook group or whatever, there's also an NFT and a metaverse Facebook group in New Zealand. They're a really good place if you just want to start listening to what's going on. You don't have to act on anything, but at least arm yourself with a little bit of information. If something gets hyped, think, why is it being hyped? And go in and look at it, and then compare it to something else that you've looked at. Sometimes you buy just because you love something, and I've done that many times.
Yep.
And sometimes you buy because you think, actually, I can see some value in
this. That's great advice. Thank you very much, Nicole. And so that makes sense too, because I guess, for example, you buy the work of an artist, but a lot of people, well, what was his or her work before? What are their collections? Where's it going? So that makes sense. That okay, if you think, I want to try my hand at it, be serious about it more than just to dabble. Your chances of actually making a return on your investment of time, and I guess that the crypto that it costs to get it onto the onto Lithoverse or whatever other platform, etc., to mint it and so forth, you're more likely to get a return on that investment if you're putting a bit of time into it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I feel like you've pulled the veil away from a lot of things today, because there's things we hear bandied about. There's comments like in the Herald and stuff, etc. But what does it all mean? I feel like today you've given us a much better understanding of sort of some of these basics here. I noticed that if people go to CENNZNet, there's links to lots of other companies that are in New Zealand that are doing good things in the crypto space. So that's probably a good website to start your journey. And you can get to the Lithoverse, I presume, from there as well?
Yeah, you can.
Yep. Okay, and we've had some great tips as well today. So we'll post some links down there below. Any closing comments, observations, or advice, Nicole, that you'd care to offer?
Look, I love this space. I think it's got huge potential. It's still very early, so you can think it's a little bit hard with the cryptocurrency, even I do, but NFTs is actually a really easy space because at the end of the day, you don't spend more than you can afford to lose, and then you get something cool out of it. I'm not going to frame my Bitcoin, but I could actually frame this cool thing that I bought because I loved, and by the way, it went 10 times in price. So, yeah.
Notice a good little bit of advice is don't spend more than you can afford to lose, which is a kind of a key precept of investing, isn't it? So, yes. Yeah. Nicole, we really, really appreciate your time today, and great to see what so many New Zealanders are doing in this space. Thank you so much for sharing those insights with us.
No problem. Happy to be here. Thank you.
All right.